Welcome to the Gay Daddy Reviews. Do we all remember Jason and Eric's kinky True Blood vamp human sex scene? Needless to say, I had very high hopes for Alan Ball's coming out story, starring the super sexy daddy Paul Bettany. I've watched Uncle Frank a few times now, that's why I'm here. Uncle Frank is not Jason or Eric. He's Blanche Dubois without all the fucking. Ewan McGregor's performance as Halston was very affected and lacked intuition and authenticity. I'm gay from the South, born in the 70s, have read literature, and have a mustache. So how does Paul Bettany, another straight actor playing gay, do as a 1970s homosexual Southern literature professor with a mustache? I'll get to that. First, let's talk Alan Ball. Uncle Frank promised to be the homosexual Southern comedy drama I've been waiting for him to write and direct ever since he'd won a much-deserved Oscar for the best screenplay for American Beauty. I've loved his other work, especially the sextastic True Blood, Obsessed, and 6 Feet Under was great, but I have to admit, I'm not a huge fan of the gay character David. He always rubbed me the wrong way. But I still felt, based on American Beauty and the sex-positive nature of True Blood, which ended in 2014, that Alan Ball had a compelling, funny, hot memoir in him. Uncle Frank is a coming-out story told from the point of view of his niece. This is absurd, but I'll talk about that later. Let's get past the story basics. No real spoilers here. So his niece, Beth, narrates Uncle Frank's story starting in 1969. She idolizes him and he sees her as a kindred spirit and insists that she be whomever she wants to be, especially if that means she moves to New York City where he could be her mentor. Fast forward to 1973, past the Stonewall riots of '69, the life of gay men was still a very cautious one and rarely allowed professional and personal worlds to collide. Beth now attends NYU, and after sneaking into one of her Uncle Frank's parties, she discovers that he is gay and that his roommate Wally is actually his partner of 10 years. Suddenly, Daddy Mac kicks the bucket, and Uncle Frank and Beth take a road trip home, where Uncle Frank is forced to confront his homophobic family and the horrific tragedy from his teenage years that is largely responsible for his anguish. That's it for the story basics. Mr. Bettany does deliver a great performance. I was won over early. The moment Uncle Frank hides the pain of his father's cruelty behind a smile, Paul Bettany knows why Uncle Frank smiles. It's a lived-in, worn defense mechanism. It's so horrifically touching. Uncle Frank tells Beth in the beginning that you're gonna be the person you decide to be, or you're gonna be the person everyone tells you you are. You get to choose. But it is Uncle Frank who struggles to take his own advice. Uncle Frank's coming out story is told by his niece. Why? I can't imagine having my niece narrate my coming out story. Like, what fresh perspective could she offer about an older gay man's journey? It's absurd, it's strange, and makes me think Alan Ball uses her because he's afraid to reveal anything truly personal. What I expected, what I had hoped for, is that same sardonic wit that Alan Ball brought to Lester in American Beauty and Sookie in True Blood, focused on his coming out story. Instead, we get Uncle Frank's coming out story told to us from a naive teenage girl's point of view. Uncle Frank is like if Wit, a one-act play about a very witty literature professor dying of cancer, if that story had been narrated to us by a candy striper. It would have sucked. And not won the Pulitzer Prize for dramatic writing. Was Alan Ball scared of the challenge of talking in an adult voice? Is that why Uncle Frank is told his coming out story from essentially a child's point of view? Having Beth narrate Uncle Frank has a cataclysmic effect on the film. Despite having such a super hot daddy as Paul Bettany play Uncle Frank, the movie is sexless. Yes, I think Peter Medici, Uncle Frank's partner of 10 years, is hilarious and heartwarming, but there is no sex in this relationship, and there doesn't appear to have been for years. There are a few fleeting romantic moments when Uncle Frank is a freaking teenager, but this movie feels like it was made for a wide audience. But it's not romantic, funny, or slapstick enough. Steel Magnolias has Weezer smashing a cake in Drum's face. The Help has Minnie's pie. There's none of that kind of comedy here to lighten the tragedy at the center of the story. And Paul Bettany is one of the absolute sexiest men in Hollywood. He looks amazing for 50, and he finally plays a gay guy, and there's no sex. Zilch. If their sex life was part of their difficulties, as it definitely seems to be, it should be addressed. Sophia Lillis is great as his niece, but her character is really extra, superfluous. Uncle Frank could have been a much hotter, better, more truthful story without Beth narrating. All the supporting actors are excellent. Margot Martindale, so amazing in The Americans, is woefully underused here. Daddy Mac is played with intensity and venom by Stephen Root. He is downright brilliant with an almost one-note character. But it's Lois Smith, who at 90 is Uncle Frank's wisdom-spewing aunt with spiders in her hair. She steals the show. She's the most authentic character here. I would not put much weight in what she has to say, but what she does say and Paul Bettany's reaction is very funny. Lois Smith is a national treasure. Please God, keep her around for a while longer. The tragedy at the center of Frank's anguish is lifted directly from Blanche Dubois' backstory. I'll say no more than that. Once I had that realization, I realized just how much was missing from this coming out story, especially the sex. In conclusion, I enjoyed Uncle Frank. I cried and believe Paul Bettany's performance is beautiful, rising above the material, and deserves the accolades. I just feel like, based on everyone's performance, that there was a much better movie to be had here. I wish Alan Ball had a writing partner to sex this up. I mean, we have one of the hottest daddies available, a certifiable Marvel superhero at his disposal, and he does nothing with it. Paul Bettany is playing gay, but there's no sex. Here's one spoiler for you. Paul Bettany has one offer for sex, and he turns it down. It would have been more truthful considering his turmoil had he accepted. Everyone remembers Blanche going after the newspaper boy, right? I give Uncle Frank 2.5 stars. It moved me to tears, truly, but this movie was not made for a gay audience, and maybe that's the whole point. Gay sex scares straight people. Alan Ball wanted Uncle Frank to be The Help or Steel Magnolias, something you could watch with your homophobic grandmother or maybe the whole homophobic family. Why didn't Alan Ball write Uncle Frank for us? It would have been so much more fun. I want a redo right now, Alan Ball. All right, y'all. Until next time, don't write your coming out stories with a sexually naive narrator. And always remember, living well